You've got the Silencio app. You can download for free. You've got 200 and how many thousand?
80,000.
280,000 sensors out there, which is pretty cool, which is just smartphones with, a decent microphone on it, recording this noise data.
That we don't record any content, so to say. So we're not listening. We're just recording the dB values. We don't know if you're screaming or if you're jumping or something. It's just how loud it is.
And right now they get noise coins.
So the more you participate, the more value you add to the network, the higher your participation within the airdrop.
Silencio is built on Peak. Peak is a layer 1 for DePINs. Why did you choose Peak? Why are you building on this layer 1 for DePINs? What brought you there?
We didn't want a sort of agnostic chain, and Ethereum, for example, is way too costly in terms of transaction fees.
I mean, DePIN, the opportunity is you need a network or infrastructure. People out there build it for you effectively with, in this case, the phones, the sensors, the microphones, and then you incentivize them. You can commoditize the data, and then people have control and can sell it, the data on their own and get rewarded for it. I mean, they seem pretty engaged to do this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the strength of Web 2 is really their commercial ties and contracts and data capabilities. And then on the Web 3 side is everything on scaling.
Hey friends, thanks for tuning into the Andy and Friends podcast. I'm your friend Andy, and in this episode of the podcast, I'm talking to Eric, one of the co-founders of the project Silencio. I've talked about Silencio a few times on my main channel. It is a DePIN play that I think is really interesting. So in this episode, we dig into what Silencio is, why they're building it, who's using this data that they're collecting, how people can make money with this, and DePIN in general. And we also talk about what the appeal of DePIN even is and why people should be paying attention to it. So this is a great one that you don't want to miss. Let's jump into it. And here we are on the podcast with Eric from Silencio. Hello, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you very much for having me here. How are you?
Good, good. So maybe you can start off by telling us what you do at Silencio, who you are.
Well, I'm one of the 3 co-founders of Silencio, along with Thomas and Theo, and I'm in charge, so to say, of the product and data side.
Very cool. And then, I've talked about Silencio on my channel. I've done some videos on it. So some people who watch this know what it is, but maybe for those who don't, or those who want a refresher, what is Silencio?
Yeah, for sure. Silencio is an app that is a hub for all type of smartphone generated data. The idea here is to build data capturing capabilities and a really engaged community to give the community and users access to the smartphone generated data. And if a data sale occurs, they participate with a distribution mechanism of the rewards.
Very cool. So, I mean, the name implies something around noise, but you have bigger plans than just noise.
Exactly. What I just mentioned is the biggest vision, but the initial idea of how we came up with Silencio is doing this particularly with the first and most innovative data set that we came up with is noise level data. We start with noise level data as it's the second most pressing issue in terms of health after air pollution, and it has a $5 trillion cost on the GDP impact. And nobody's looking at it right now. I mean, there are just no capabilities in place to measure and in sort of a real life or updated noise level data. Every solution that tries to be out there is sort of computed, but it's not really hyper local how noise measurement has to be.
Oh, that's cool. So, okay. I want to dig more into that because that's fascinating. I had no idea that this data was that important. First though, when was Silencio started? When did you start Silencio?
Well, we started in August 22, okay. And then we launched the product in March. We had steady growth throughout the year till December, where we reached 50,000 users. And that's when we got picked up by a lot of KOLs and the Masari report. And that's when this sort of hockey stick growth started. And we grew at that point, starting 50% month over month, and are now roughly at 280,000 sensors.
So 80,000, that's people, right?
200,000 sensors. Yeah, we call it sensors because one user could have multiple smartphone devices, so sensors. But the ratio. I mean, we have 240,000 users and 280,000 sensors
in less than 2 years.
Yeah, no, less than 2 years exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I think that right there, and we'll talk more about DePIN, but I think that kind of is a great example of the power of DePIN. maybe let's dig into like why start with noise data, which you've already talked a little bit about. Let's dig deeper in there. Like what was some of the most compelling reasons why you decided to start with capturing noise data and building the product around that?
Yeah, the idea behind this is that we see that it's going to be a huge market. It's still of a blue ocean strategy, so to say, because they're not commercial plans or data sales happening right now. But we envision a future where we impact the decision making of consumers. So to say, imagine that for the next consensus conference or your next vacation trip, you would go to Airbnb, Booking, or any type of booking platforms, and you're able to see the surrounding noise level data in the morning, at noon, and at night. And if you can decide and know if you will be able to sleep or no. So the pricing mechanism could change a lot. This is more of a consumer side. If you book a restaurant, an open table, you could, for example, take a look at how the music is going to be. And then more on the data consumption side, we see impacts having real estate evaluation platform, for example. They use machine learning to do pricing. So we see a lot of possible use cases for this data.
And so the reason we're both sitting here in person with each other is because we're at the Consensus conference. Have you already looked at data yet? Do you know if people have already checked in on Silencio and done noise at the venue yet?
There's a little bit of data going on, but I plan on doing some myself now that I will be running around here, and hopefully more local people within the city. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a reminder that I need when I go back to the conference, I'm going to check in,
yes,
venue check in.
Please do, yeah.
Okay, cool. So, who's using like this noise data? Like, who wants this data everybody's collecting with their phones?
Well, we have the idea of Silencio is really making the data available for everyone. So not just the companies start buying the data, but for our users ourselves. I mean, you and I can now do what I just talked about, Airbnb, but on a more manual way. You could take a look at the property in Airbnb and then go to our map that is freely available in the website and within the app. You don't have to be a user, so to say, and you can just look up the location and see the surrounding noise level data. So that's the use case for people, for the users, so to say. But then on the other side, we're selling this data to some companies, and they're doing their insights, and then either reselling the data, well, not the data itself, but reselling the insights of that data.
And what type of insights can you get from it? Is it just I can look at a map, I can know where it's noisy? Is there like construction, like new construction? Do they look at this? Like who is interested in the like, and what kind of information can they glean from this? Can they get from it?
Yeah, exactly. They can see like trend shifts of noise, what urban places are growing faster than other ones. And we're doing a pilot project with a real estate evaluation platform that has machine algorithm and does pricing. So that's input parameters that could affect their output, and they're really keen on start working with us as well.
That's cool. So right now, you've got the Silencio app. You can download it for free. You've got 200 and how many thousand?
80,000.
280,000 sensors out there, which is pretty cool. Which is just smartphones with a decent microphone on it, recording this noise data. And right now they get noise coins. Is that or noise points? What are they called?
Yeah, it's noise coins, but it's sort of say an intermediate reward and distribution mechanism that sort of rewards certain tasks, and this ranks you within a leaderboard. And then once the token is live, it would sort of do airdrops and proportionate to what sort of bucket you are in for that specific week. So the more you participate in, the more value you add to the network, the higher your participation within the airdrop.
And what are the types of tasks or quests or things that people are doing in the app?
Exactly. Well, we reward things differently, and it will get changed across the time. But for example, you get points for time, so how many minutes you measured. You get points for how many hexagons you discovered, so to encourage people to go out there and not just being in their house recording the same place every time. How many hexagons you covered to make sure that we get enough density. How many check-ins, like POI check-ins you did, for example, at a Starbucks, McDonald's, hotel, sort of that. And then how many friends you referred. So those are the high-level rewards that we reward. And then we're sort of more gamification features. We have, for example, streaks. So if you do one reward each day, you get rewarded more. We have a lot of quests. So if once you reach 100 check-ins, you get an extra point. And yeah, but this is all of this dynamic reward mechanism that will keep on changing during time.
Yeah. So on the channel, I talk a lot about DePIN. I'm in a lot of DePIN projects. One that I know has made a lot of people who watch my channel a lot of money is a Hive Mapper. All this, mapping data through your car. And I thought an interesting mechanism they did, and it's not new, they didn't invent it, but where if there's a data set that is particularly lucrative or it's in demand, or if there's a company that wants imaging data here or there specifically, they can extra incentivize that or add bonuses. Are you doing the same thing with noise?
Yeah, exactly. We sort of have, or we can sort of geofence certain areas. And for example, say that check-ins in California for Starbucks are being rewarded double for this time period. So we can really go to companies and say, hey, what data is exactly what you mentioned? For example, if we were to work with Starbucks, maybe one day, and they would like to analyze their franchises, how loud it is, if they're compliant with the franchise contract, we can sort of geofence and highly reward those specific people. I mean, we have a really highly engaged community. We have almost 50% daily active users and 60% monthly active users. So they're really engaged and using the app every day.
Man, that's pretty. I mean, what's typical for apps like just out there? Like, I mean, 50% sounds really high to me. What is normal? What is normal?
Well, it depends. I mean, we are in the likes of Instagram, so to say.
Oh, wow.
Some people, yeah.
So that's just the proof. I mean, I think that's like, DePIN, the opportunity is you need a network or infrastructure. People out there build it for you effectively with, in this case, the phones, the sensors, the microphones, and then you incentivize them with, right now it's the noise coins, but in the future it'll be airdrops and stuff. But, just proves that when you can commoditize the data and then people have control and can sell it, the data on their own and get rewarded for it. Like that, I mean, they seem pretty engaged to do this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of this is something that's happening on the background. I mean, a lot of us have, I don't know, meditation app, and they're sort of tracking something and they're selling it behind your back and you don't know it. So the real power is the real idea is giving power back to the people in terms of, you're not forced to join Silencio. You can join it. You can send to whatever data set you want on your terms. Everything is anonymous. And this is the real power behind it. Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, what you just described and what we're talking about here, like this makes so much sense to me. It's like you have the company, you have the people buying the data, and then you have the people who are the customers, the consumers, the actual network there too. And it's a win-win-win because everybody is getting what they want out of the equation, which I feel like has never happened before. So it's like a no-brainer to me. That's why I'm like all about DePIN. I think it's like the future. I think it's the thing that gets true adoption for Web3, really, because it actually puts real value on it and gives a mechanism for rewarding people to adopt this stuff. So are you already seeing traditional companies, Web2 companies that aren't even like much on the tech side yet getting into this? Or when do we see more adoption? Like what is that movement that has to happen for that to really take root?
Yeah, I think within the next few years, a lot of, almost every data capturing capability that lives on a Web2 tech side will have its digital Web3 twin or competitor, so to say. And I think in next 5 to 10 years, we'll see a lot of mergers happening between the two, because I think that Web2 has the strength of Web2 is really their commercial ties and contracts and data capabilities. And then on the Web3 side is everything on scaling. So I think that the merger between those two is really important. Exactly. We can see a trend that, for example, Google bought 2 years ago a company that's called Breezometer, which is basically a DePIN with hardware for air pollution. So they installed certain hardware in certain cities and places, and Google bought them up, and now they're just offering the data set directly in their Google API, Places API.
Yeah, that's cool. I feel like, and maybe you have some data you can back this up with, but just my gut feeling is that, traditional model of data and tracking data and using free apps, and whatever you're in a certain store and you're on an app and it knows, and you get advertisements later and they sell that data. You don't actually get a cut of that. But in this model, the DePIN model, and what you're doing with Silencio, I feel like you will get better quality data because people are more incentivized to actually do it willingly. Do you agree with that feeling? Or maybe there's not data to back it up yet, or it's too early, but do you feel like you will get better quality data this direction than the other?
Yeah, that for sure. I mean, a lot of data being captured behind your back is being sold for publishing purposes, so to say. But I think that Silencio is focused more on real world asset data or environmental data and those type of sets. So it's more on an aggregated level.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting to see this experiment because it's an experiment in real time and seeing what the market kind of decides.
Yeah, exactly.
So you said, in the future you'll see each traditional company or Web 2 company have its kind of DePIN twin, which is an interesting idea. So is there already a noise pollution equivalent to Silencio that's in the more traditional world?
Yeah, there's more of a research pilot project.
Yep.
Yeah, and they installed hardware as well, and then they have there's another company that does only what we call venue check-ins, so it's point of interest where you can go to a restaurant and check in there. But we have really in 1 year outgrew them by 10x due to this DePIN mechanism, which is really scaling. And if you are able to incentivize people and really get a nice frictionless gamification app, you can really get people engaged and have them come back to the app every day. And what we plan on doing within the next weeks is really making sure that the ones that do not want to participate each day with Silencio, so what we call active user, active measurements, we will enable passive measurements, so to say, where you can just decide on how many times you want to do a certain recording, and then you just forget about the app. You have it run in the background and just check in every 1 to 2 weeks or 1 month on how many coins you've earned.
Oh, that's cool. So with the more like this research organization or research company you're talking about that does this noise pollution, to you've 10x the growth of which is wild. How do they collect the data? What's different? Like, how do they collect their data? How do they deploy stuff in the field and gather this data? Like, how does it work?
Well, yeah, they have an app as well, but it's more on the research scientific side. So what we have analyzed, they're from France. They're really high density in France, but it's more on a research project. So they haven't scaled it enough. And in our case, I mean, we have spent $0 on marketing. Everything is word of mouth or KOLs. Like, everything is really organic. So we're really proud of that growth.
Yeah. And I imagine, like, if you didn't do the app route, which is smart that at least that, this equivalent is doing the app route. But if you weren't going to do that, like, you'd have to hire employees and have them go out with microphones and like equipment in the field. And it's going to be tiny, and the amount of of coverage you can do doing that. So like good idea to do just the app just for scale, but do the incentive layer on top of that. It's very, very many times larger than it could be otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea is not really because the data is worth if you can sort of upkeep it and maintain it. It's not, for example, if Google Street View were to just pass once with a car, that's why HiveMapper is really successful now, because then really they can update the data set all the time. That's what we plan on doing as well. Every time you walk around, you're sort of gathering new data, and then you can analyze trends, averages.
So, I'm curious. Given that you started Silencio in August of 22, correct? It's not quite 2 years old. I first, even though I've been in DePIN, the space, for many years now, it didn't have that name until I think probably the Masari report initially came out and they gave it that label. But I don't know who started it, but that was the DePIN acronym was newer, but it's been around for a while before that. So what inspired you to chase this model and to create Silencio? Like, what was the motivation to do that?
Well, my two co-founders started, sort of say, deployment as a service company for DePIN companies before it was called DePIN. So they deployed hardware devices for Helium, PlanetWatch. So I understood the in and outs, the pitfalls, the do's and don'ts of DePIN, and we sort of took the best things in terms of how to grow and how to scale, and without the pain points of maintaining hardware. So that's why we decided to go with a fully software-based approach. We are tapping into 7 billion plus idle infrastructure with your phone. Everyone uses the phone on a daily basis. And it's really easy to scale and to what we mentioned before, just sort of do a plug and play of new data sets without having to issue either a new hardware device or tapping into the software device and changing it.
Yeah, hardware is scary. Hardware can grow very quickly if the right incentives are in place, like Helium IoT, but the downside is if they shift away from that, then everybody, I have several IoT Helium, hotspots that don't do really much anymore.
It's a huge shifting cost, like CapEx and so on. And the other pressing, or the thing that we don't like about being hardware based is that your community, once they buy or they decide to go with your project, they have instantly an ROI expectation. They say, I spent $100 on this device, I'm mining $1 per day, I have a 100-day break even. But then you're fully focused on only the price of the token, not the real utility. That's what we're aiming for with Silencio.
Yeah, in one of my other podcast episodes I recorded recently with the Peak Network, we talked about this too, and I really hadn't thought about that aspect of it. And even the DePINs that do have hardware, most of it is actually pretty reasonably priced. Versus getting a Bitcoin miner for $5,000 or $10,000 or something. That's a different prospect. You want that money back, and it's no different with a $100 DePIN device, but at least the barrier to entry is lower, but it's really low with a free app. I just thought that was really interesting because I hadn't really thought about that perspective. It makes total sense. But speaking of Peak, Silencio is built on Peak. Peak is a layer 1 for DePINs. Why did you choose Peak? Why are you building on this layer 1 for DePINs? What brought you there?
Well, we did a lot of research before deciding on where to build. But when we came across Peak, we met them. They're also a German company. And we hit it off from the start. They are really good in terms of scalability, low fees, environment friendly, decentralization factor. So that's mainly the reason why we decided to go there. We didn't want a sort of agnostic chain, and Ethereum, for example, is way too costly in terms of transaction fees. But the good thing is here that our token itself will and Peak is EVM compatible, has cross-chain mechanisms, so our token will be readily, once there's a token available almost on everywhere. Our idea is to really push liquidity on almost any chain and make sure that the token is alive and transferable.
Yeah, Peak is interesting. I'm a fan of them. I really think there's power in like focus, because it's everybody builds on Ethereum, or a lot of people building on Solana too, but they really are like a general chain, like agnostic, like you said. You can build anything on them, which is a strength, but it's also a weakness. So, like, are there anything specifically with Peak as the reason you didn't go with an Ethereum, other than the fees and stuff?
Yeah, Peak has a lot of modules that you can just tap into as SDKs, and the one that we decided to go with, the first is, or the highest value, is their machine ID. And so it's basically tying a real world asset to an ID on the blockchain and having that ID directly push from the sensor the data to the blockchain. So for example, on our smartphones of the users, they would gather data, and then that data would be directly pushed from the device. So it's not going through our servers, so we can tap, or so to say, change that data. So it's directly going from the sensor, and making sure that all that governance and all that traceability is correct is what this particular SDK does.
Yeah, that's cool. And I guess you're not alone, because they've got like 20 something other DePIN projects building on them too, which is pretty cool. So you're collecting noise data right now. and that's going to, you're incentivizing that by the noise coins, which are going to be eventually tokens. What is some of the next like features or next steps for Silencio? Maybe just to the end of 2024, or maybe into 2025?
Well, in terms of features, what we're doing, we implemented, our goal is really to generate utility for the token. So we implemented it, it's live, you can see it in the app, a marketplace now where we have already 8 partnerships with other DePIN hardware projects. So we are sort of giving our community access as a gateway to other projects, so visibility. The other thing that we plan on doing is generating a passive measurement, so to say. So having people participate in DePIN or in Silencio that do not want to sort of tap into the app every time. So those are the 2 main features that we're planning on launching next.
In the marketplace with these other projects, I haven't checked this out yet, but what are a few of those other projects, and how do Silencio users interface, or what do they do for those other projects?
Well, yeah, we have it's sort of a marketplace where you can trade our noise coins for discounts.
Oh, okay.
And then you would go to the website with this revenue with the coupon. I think that the most partnership that we have now is Weather Exam, so you can buy the weather station from them, Sora Chain, and then Pillow. So there's a lot of projects.
I'm familiar with Weather XM and getting weather data, and Soar, that's the one that plugs in the car.
Exactly, yeah.
What's the third one you said?
It's Pillow. It's sort of something that you can put on your face. I don't know.
Like weird. Sleep data, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
That's cool. So right now, noise coins, which is just points in the app, and you can't pull them out. They're not monetary value yet. Do you have, what do the plans look like for that? At what point in the year do the airdrops start happening? What are your future plans for the token? Tell me about that. Exactly.
We plan to do it in TGE. We don't know yet what specific time, but it will be within the year for sure. And at that moment, the weekly airdrop would be starting, and it will be it's a fixed airdrop, and it will get distributed along 10 years within the proportional to what ranking or leaderboard section you're in. So the higher you are, the more you participate on the airdrop.
You said 10 years?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a fixed amount per year dropped to the people who have the points per week, proportional to how many points you've gathered.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So if you are in the highest bucket, you would get proportionally more than the lowest bucket.
And then is that people on, there's lots of people on the leaderboard right now, and they're trying to get to the top of the leaderboard so they can get the most points, they can get the most airdrop. Does that leaderboard periodically reset? Does it stay the same? How does that work?
It's a proportion. I mean, it's a mix between historical and weekly value added. So the idea is to really compensate the ones that were from the beginning and added value, but not making it enable someone to just have participated and then just stop after the airdrop and keep on being on the highest leaderboard forever.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a moving average. So.
Yeah, because that's tough, because you want to reward early adopters because they're incredibly important, but you also don't want to make it so there's no reason for new people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's cool. So you said
the good thing about this is that this flexible reward mechanism is always in the making. It's learning what works, what doesn't work, and making sure that the mechanism engages our users to gather the data.
Yeah, I'm sure that's that's got to be like a fine dance. It's like
exactly.
Yeah. So how big is the Silencio team right now?
Well, on management we are 7. And then on developer side, we're 10 roughly.
Okay. So, I mean, not tiny, but,
not tiny, but not huge.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And so Silencio currently, right, we're doing noise data, noise pollution data, and you have bigger vision than that for all, other types of data and stuff. When do those things start happening?
I think in Q4, we will start adding new data set. But for now, we have live, so to say, like what we call open street level data, which is one layer of the map that you can access now. And then we have venue check-in data, which is sort of POI data. So it's a different layer on the map that you see, but it's tied to certain places.
And then right now, obviously, you're talking about who would be using this data. Do you have current clients, companies that are actively buying this right now?
We closed 2 months ago our first client, so we're really proud of that, and we'll for sure make an announcement in a couple of weeks.
Okay, so that's
the community know.
It hasn't been announced yet. Okay,
it has been announced yet, yeah.
Okay, cool.
We're very proud about that, yeah.
Yeah, and so do you have some goals around that, like how many clients you want by end of year, or like how are you tracking that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we're trying to aim to roughly 5 to 10 clients by the end of the year for specifically noise. But then as we keep on adding new data sets, we will offshore onboard new users.
Yeah, and then maybe you can't speak to this yet because you haven't announced it. I want to ask specific questions about the client, but is this client or future ones that you're looking to get? Is it they pay monthly for this data? Do they pay per data set? Like how would you monetize it like that?
It's a good question. The one that we're working with now is sort of say it's a monthly fee for the entire data set, for daily data set, so to say. So it keeps on growing with our data, with our users. But on a later stage, we plan to really have directly APIs and have the companies directly consume our data out of there. For example, Airbnb would ping our API, and then we just return the values that they asked for.
Yeah, man, I imagine an Airbnb would be such a natural fit, and
yeah, exactly.
Because as I speak as a motorcycle drives by, again, it's good to know where, how noisy, if you're going for a relaxing week in sunny Austin, Texas, and you want to sleep at night, it's good to know how noisy that area is.
Yeah, for sure, exactly. Or you can see a lot of a lot of complaints in the hotels is that you go to a hotel and they didn't tell you there's a construction site nearby, because it doesn't say on the website for sure. But if you were to go to Silencio, you would see that in the last 2 weeks, a lot of noise got picked up, and maybe there's something weird going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can get that data now, kind of. If you read reviews, someone says it was noisy, but you don't actually know what that means. Like, it's not quantified in any way. Whereas this is a really interesting thing where you open your Yelp up, you open your Google reviews, you go, okay, I like this hotel, looks good. Then you open up Silencio, check out the noise data for it. It's a different way of thinking about it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. The friction now is that specific user would have to have Yelp and Silencio.
Right.
But the idea is that he shouldn't even have to know about Silencio, and he would just directly look at the data within the booking platform of his choice.
Which, that's one of the things that I've talked about on my channel when it comes to DePIN. Like, I love, Silencio. I'm a big fan of Silencio. I'm a big fan of other DePIN projects. I like them as in and of themselves, as siloed. But I think the real power with these is the data. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, some company, do they care about, Silencio specifically? No, they care about the data you're going to provide to give them the information they need. So it should be kind of a transparent layer in the whole mix. And you make money from, providing these people this layer. And then Yelp or Google reviews or Airbnb, or they just build it in. So, I mean, is this like what I'm describing, the dream scenario for the success of what you're doing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the idea is to build this sort of data infrastructure where other companies can just tap in, either to consume data sets that are already live, or just proposing new data sets in terms of what the community is engaged or able to do.
Yep. And so beyond selling the data, how else are there other ways you will be monetizing Silencio?
Yeah, again, as the idea is to really, we have this sort of revenue sharing marketplace. So that's another model. And we still have to develop new other revenue streams. But the biggest one is for sure is going to be the data sales. And
the data, selling the data to specific companies, do you have, I mean, I'm sure you've modeled it, but I don't want to get like Shark Tank pitch here where you're like, we're going to be 1% of $1 trillion, but do you have a sense for how big that market is?
Well, the entire personal data economy, so to say, is 300 billion today. So
pretty good slice.
Yeah, pretty good slice. Yeah. Every day it's difficult because that data is being then packaged or resold to Fortune 500 companies, and GDPR and data privacy laws are getting always more strict, so to say. So what we bring to the table is really traceable data origin and traceable consent from the user. So the end buyer or consumer for that data can really trace the entire way back to the back to the consent and know that it's not fraudulent or it's compliant by law. So that's really that has a higher pricing point for us for this new data buyers.
And so, yeah, that's one of the things I love about, again, I keep saying things I love about DePIN. I like it, but before you sign up for your phone carrier, you buy your car, or you buy this product or your streaming service, somewhere in the fine print it says we're going to use your data and sell your data and whatever. You just agree to it. You don't even look at it, and then without your ongoing consent, just the one time you signed a thing, whatever, legally it's consent, but without your ongoing consent, they take your data, they sell it, you don't get anything in return. So that's, DePIN completely changes that scenario, which I think is incredible. But so talk me through, you just mentioned, some of this privacy stuff. Talk me through some of that. Like, is it enough that they say, I open the app, I'm consenting to this data, I'm doing active recording right now, that's enough? Or, is there some other layer you do there where there's conversations happening? Like, how do you navigate that?
It's a really good question. I mean, here, just to be brutally important, is that we don't record any content, so to say. So we're not listening, we're just recording the DB values. So that's really important. We don't know if you're screaming or if you're jumping or something. It's just how loud it is. And then there's certain things that you're allowed to record and not to record, or how you have to sell the data. And the important thing is that it is obviously anonymous. So you cannot trace back to a specific user. And we're fully GDPR and data privacy compliant. We work with a law firm that makes sure that. And the real idea is that in Silencio, you do not have to consent once. You can always very easily, invisible, opt in, opt out, either on the entire data sets or just a specific one. So it's really making sure that you are commercializing your data on your own terms, when you want and how you want it exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, one of the reasons I really hope that, you continue to have success is because I love, being able to democratize people's data, but also, having this kind of transparent, usage and handling of it. So I really want that to win, because the current model does not have any of that transparency. It's the absolute opposite. And so I'm really hopeful. And maybe I'm naive in this, all grand experiment, but I think there's something here that we can get to this world where, you truly own and control your data, and you're willfully deciding to give it to this person, what they're doing with it and how it's being used and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, okay. I didn't actually know that the no recording part. That's pretty cool. So let's talk about DePIN more broadly. I'm curious, you're building a DePIN, you have to have exposure to a bunch of other ones. You have some other ones in your marketplace. What other projects or what other ideas in the DePIN space are you really excited about right now?
I mean, I think the DePINs that are going to scale the fastest are the ones that are software based and not, again, we're really tied to this narrative. And I think Nadix is doing a great job about this. It's basically, so to say, a Hive mapper, but without the hardware device. And it's, again, only software based with a smartphone. So I think they're gonna do really good as well.
I've in a couple of the roundups I've done of some DePINs that I've included Silencio. I've also included Natix because there is definitely that parallel. It's just all you need is a smartphone, which guess what? Most people on the planet have one of those these days,
and they work pretty good.
Yeah, not everybody on the planet has a computer, but most people have a smartphone or a smart enough phone, which is pretty impressive adoption if you think about technology.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there anybody else? You've talked a little bit about the traditional world. Is there anybody else in the DePIN Web3 crypto world that's a competitor doing the same kind of data? Or are you the only one?
No, to my knowledge, we're the only one. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. So let me ask you this: does that scare you at all? Because I mean, on one hand, there's lots of examples of first mover advantage that it went super well. On the other hand, there's examples of first mover advantage where it was just too early or too soon or whatever, and it was actually the third or fourth movers that were the winners. Do you think about that?
I mean, for sure, a lot of potential future competitors are going to learn a lot from our experiment, but that's why we're not putting all our eggs in just noise level data. That's the initial idea that we came up with, and that's how everything started. But that's why we're expanding to all other data sets.
And then let's talk about DePIN growth again, broadly DePIN. I think we're going to be in the this crypto bull run, hopefully in into this year or sometime in 2025, within the next 1 to 2 years. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if this people watch this and they're like, what a dummy, but hopefully that'll be very exciting. Way more adoption. People, Silencio's doing well, and people are even double the downloads and stuff like that. That kind of ideal scenario. What does your next year look like? And then let's fast forward 5 years beyond that. What does that look like?
Well, specifically for Silencio, we aim to finish the year with roughly 1 million users. So we're starting now with an active reward campaign with Peak. In cooperation with Peak, and after that, we plan to reach the tens of millions of users within the next 5 years. It's really making sure to create this amazing, beautiful, frictionless gamification app that you can choose to participate in an active way or just a passive way, and earning on your own terms. And again, using the data within the app for yourself, for everyday consumer data, and hopefully be having that data available in other platforms.
So 280,000 sensors right now. You want to 4x that essentially into a million, which you've already had very impressive growth in a short amount of time, but that's still a very ambitious number. What are the levers you're going to pull? Is it doing the same thing you've been doing? Is there new things you're going to be doing?
No, it's a new thing. I mean, we call the stage that we have had until now the organic phase, so to say. We didn't spend any dollar in marketing. It was all organic, word of mouth. Aiming for the launch, we plan to do some sort of paid marketing and start growing there. Now that we know what works and what doesn't work, on what specific niches or groups to really scale this.
Yeah, and do you think, do you have big plans around the actual token airdrop? Do you think that is going to incentivize a lot of growth very rapidly, or how are you viewing that?
Yeah, for sure. This initial marketing campaign that we're doing with Peak is our users will get rewarded. Will start and continue earning noise coins, but they will, for certain rewards, being airdropped the Peak token directly. So there will be double mining, so to say.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's the main lever that we see for this exponential growth. Exactly.
So that's Silencio focus, what we just talked about. Now talk more broadly about DePIN. What does the next year for DePIN look like? What are you expecting to see happen?
Well, again, I think that a lot of models of apps that are working now on our Web2 data capturing capabilities, we will see start deploying on a Web3 basis. And I think I read in a Masari report that I think the market cap of the entire DePIN project is 35 billion now, and I think it's going to 100x with in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I got really, really bullish on DePIN when I read that report, and because it's 35 billion is not nothing, but it's certainly in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking about a data economy, it's pretty small. It could be a 10x is not unreasonable at all, even more than that, right?
Yeah, the report says 3.5 trillion, so it would be 100x, but it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So, obviously you're head down, super focused on Silencio, so that's a bit, probably the biggest portion of your world. But just crypto broadly, are you a pretty big crypto nerd outside of just the DePIN or just Silencio? Or what are you into?
Well, I really love the idea of crypto itself, the tech behind it, the power back to the people and so on. And I've researched and dig into a lot of interesting projects during the year, but I started roughly 2017. So, but it's amazing to see how within the last years it's faster and faster every time. It's virtually impossible to just keep up with all the things that are happening, either new apps or new technology, and it's just too much information out there.
CoinGecko, a coin aggregator. I believe last I looked, there's 14,400 coins and tokens listed.
Something like that, yeah.
Are you a holder, investor of things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, like those type of things? Are you
mainly the big ones, yeah.
And then the asymmetric bet, the moonshot is building your own company and everything. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean it's just on building a company, but not on investment side so much. So on investment, it's just buy and hold.
I'm pretty hopeful for this cycle. I mean, the last one we topped at just over 3 trillion. As we sit here right now, we're only 300 billion lower than that, and the fireworks I don't think have fully started yet. So I'm pretty hopeful that the next the next year or two is going to be pretty awesome. So here coming towards the end of this, if people are listening and they love the idea of Silencio, what would you suggest next step is to get plugged in, to get involved?
I really encourage everyone to take a look at the app, download it. It's for free. It's available on Android and iOS. It's really frictionless. It's nice. We're doing a relaunch within the next week again, a new branding, UX and UI. So it's going to be even more beautiful. And start generating data. If you want to, you can participate and not choose to generate data. You won't get rewarded, but you can easily access the data, use it in everyday life choices that you make. If you go to the next restaurant, take a look first if there is a reading for that specific restaurant at a specific time. If there's not, please do record something, so for the next user or the next time you go in, you know a little bit about this. But yeah, I encourage everyone to join Silencio, and always feedback is welcome.
Yeah, and if you are wanting to try the app, I will put a link to the app down below this, along with a little referral code if you feel so inclined to use. But yeah, and also join their Discord. Like, they post a bunch of stuff in there, and follow them. But I can attest to it. It's literally as easy as download the app, push a button, say yes, I'll allow my microphone, and then just let it record. It's pretty seamless, and the app already looks good. So I'm excited about app version 2 or whatever version you're on.
It's going to be really nice. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me, and this was a fun conversation, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me over.
Of course. And thank you for listening. See you in the next one.